Do you wonder about past lives? Have you ever thought about where your soul has been, where it's going, or what lessons and memories have been gathered along the way? In this podcast, we will discuss past life memories, psychic phenomena, energy healing, and other metaphysical topics with experts and the average person to find out how we can heal through these experiences. So I invite you to join me on my journey. Welcome to the Regression Session. Being a hippie, running through flowers naked and skipping, and then skinny dipping and talking to Jesus. Welcome back to the Regression Session. My name is Ian. Welcome to the Regression Session. To any new listeners, thank you for tuning in. We love you. I have been not releasing episodes because I don't have episodes to release. So if you want to come on my podcast, reach out to me because I need content. I'm a little busy to go out and find a ton of content right now. So it just kind of is what it is. And those of you who have reached out to me, I promise you I'm not ignoring you. I'm going to reach out to you very, very soon. So just bear with me while I'm going through, running out of backlog and all that stuff. A little update, I guess, is I'm really getting my stuff together to have my stuff on YouTube and also to release bonus content. That's going to be done through Patreon at some point in the future. So right now I only have the one tier. It's just a support the podcast. It's $5 a month. If you just want to support what I do and let me know you appreciate the show, you can subscribe on that. There's a link to that in the description. But soon I'm going to have bonus tiers. And one of the tiers I'm going to have is a monthly call where I will help answer questions about hypnosis for practitioners and also kind of answer questions about the show and whatever. So that's coming up as well. So look out for that. This week, I'm going to be talking to Barbara Burgess, and she is a past life regression hypnotherapist. She can see auras. It's very fascinating. We talk about the first times that ever happened to her where she could see auras. And what we're talking about this week is we're talking about evolution. So spiritual evolution, typically what will happen in a lot of cases is people will be they'll go to a mediumship and they'll be oh, I'm a medium now. And then they'll just be a medium and that's all they do. Well, Barbara asks the question, what do we do with that? Where do we take that? Now that we've become a medium, what's next? And so we kind of talk about spiritual evolution in that way. So what's next? I'm really excited for this episode. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Barbara. Hey, Barbara, thanks for coming on to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to it.
I have been too. I've been really excited to talk to you. Before we get back into our conversation that we were having before we started recording, I always do that. I always have big, long conversations without recording them. Anyway, before we get back into that, if you could just tell us a little bit about you, a little bit about, your story a little bit, whatever you're comfortable sharing that will give context as to why we're talking.
Okay, so I'm a regression therapist and I've been working professionally since 2008. But my whole life, I think, has been kind of along these lines of discovering spirituality and what it's really all about. And I think, I was saying before when we were speaking earlier that I love that period of children when they sort of ask why to everything you say to them. And that has been me throughout my whole life, is like, why? And being brought up in a world where we were quite anti-religious as I was growing up. My mother's family had been split by Christianity, Presbyterians and Roman Catholics, and so for me it was like, I'm fascinated as to what is so important about religion and spirituality that it can actually cause those sort of rifts in a family. To growing up, as I was going through my teen years, I did the whole read the Bible cover to cover, read the Quran cover to cover, read the Vedas, and try and understand what it was that was going on. And I think for me it's like, I got to a point where I read all these things and none of them seemed logical, so I kind of threw them all out the window. So right, I'm not going there at all. I am not going to believe in any sort of spirituality. I'm a very mathematical, scientific person, so that seemed to work quite well for a few years, until I got made redundant and decided I was going to do the hypnotherapy that I had always wanted to do. That was in 2006. So I decided I was going to train as a hypnotherapist. And it was trying to decide the course that I was going to do. For me, was quite an interesting one. And this is my journey into the spiritual world that I've got to now. I was at a music festival, got to the last day, and I had enough for lunch or a book that I'd seen. And the book that I'd seen was called Genesis Unveiled. It absolutely changed my life. Written by a guy called Ian Lawton. And when I read the book, I thought, this means something. What else has he written? And as I was looking through what else has he written, I came across this name of a guy, Andy Tomlinson, and I thought, I've seen that name before somewhere. And it wasn't until I got home that I discovered that one of the courses that I was looking at for the hypnotherapy was run by Andy Tomlinson. I thought, okay, that kind of tells me that I'm supposed to be going down that route. It was past life regression therapy, and I was going, I'm not sure about this, but hey, it feels like I'm being directed here, so I'll go along that route and go and do this. And that's how I got into the regression therapy rather than just hypnotherapy. When I got there, my first experience of hypnotizing another human being was just blew up. I had this woman that I was hypnotizing. We were in one room and other people were in different rooms doing their bit. And when I put her under, suddenly she started talking very strangely. I was getting like, what have I done? I just wanted to put you under and you're acting really weirdly and really strangely. And I got the trainer who was with me to call director of studies, who was Andy Tomlinson, the guy that I'd come across before. And she got him to come in. I was like, I'm going, what's going on? I don't understand. And he looked at me and he looked at her and he said, just tell her to breathe in some white light healing energy. And I'm going, okay, this is very weird. This is not what I was expecting when I wanted to learn to do this.
I didn't sign up for this.
Exactly. And these days, when people say that to me, I will just say, yes, you did. But at that time it was, this is not what I was expecting. So I said, okay, fair enough. Breathe in some white light healing energy. And all of a sudden I could see this like cloud of silver energy breathing into her mouth. It was as clear as day. And then she glowed in this wonderful sort of ultraviolet color that I've never seen on Earth, as it were. But it was just like, what on earth is happening? She's glowing in this color. And you could see like a double face on her, like somebody else was there. and she started closing down her chakras, going through her body, closing down her chakras. And I'm going, what have I done? And so when she'd done that, she came out of it, and she told me that what had happened to her is somebody had tried to take her over. And when I asked her to breathe in the white light healing energy, her spirit guide had moved into her body and closed down all her chakras to protect her, which was the glow of purple. That was her spirit guide taking over her body. And so for her, it all made sense. For me, it was like, what on earth? what happened here?
So,
And
if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
If you don't mind, I would like to talk about that, because that's something that I have never even been. Well, okay, I was worried about it for a second, but then I kind of wasn't really worried about it very much. That exact thing right there, and I think it's a fear of people. Once they kind of understand a little bit more about this, is what if some entity tries to take me over when I'm doing hypnosis? So, what are your thoughts on that? Because that's very interesting that you bring that up.
Okay. In that particular case, we were actually in an old, like 14th century cottage. It had been part of the English Civil War, and a lot of people had been murdered in that place. And really, we probably shouldn't have been doing this sort of work in there. Later on that weekend, we cleared the energies of all these people who'd been murdered there. But I would say, generally speaking, it's about what I think we are given what we can cope with at a time. Our spirit guides, I always ask before I start, make sure that spirit guides are there and looking after us and keeping an eye on not giving us anything that we can't deal with. So for me, it's if things like that come up, and they do come up, we have spirit attachments and all sorts of other things like that. They do come up, it's because we can deal with them. And I generally find, like, for someone who is not ready for that, they won't get it. This particular person knew exactly what was going on. When she came round, she said, this made for sense to her. She just explained what had happened. For me, it was, I would have been worried if I hadn't had all around me the people I needed around me to help me through that experience of spiritual awakening, if you like. So I think the experience arrives when you are ready for it and you've got the right people around you ready for it. It doesn't. It's like most people don't experience horrible past lives when they do one of these YouTube videos. They usually really rarely get into something that they can't deal with when they do a YouTube regression thing. Having said that, I tend to advise people it's not a good way to go, because
I agree with you. They only get it's like dipping your toes in the water. You're not even
yeah,
gonna. I don't even think people can really, like, normal average people can get into a full experience. I think that it's like grazing the surface and then bouncing back.
yeah,
But that's a conversation for another time. One thing
yeah,
I would like. Oh, go ahead.
yeah, but on their being on their own like that, and without the protection of having somebody who knows what's going on with them, or what could be going on, so that we can actually bring in the right energies to help, if that things like that. They very rarely get into the real depths of that past life. So yeah, it's a touch. It's a way to sort of know that it exists without really fully experiencing it.
And people, for my audience, anyone listening, anybody who's experienced with past life regressions, anyone who's brand new, I will say that around maybe 30%, I would say probably about 30%, if I was going to guesstimate, of my sessions that I facilitate have some kind of an entity or foreign energy or something like that. That's not 100% the client's energy
Yeah.
involved, because we do interact with all kinds of energy. I've even had someone where they felt like their own energy was entangled with their ex-wife's energy and they couldn't get out of it. And so we didn't even do a regression, really. We just did like an energy untangling, if you will.
Yeah.
But we really do, like, it doesn't have to be like entity sounds like a scary word, but it can even be like a part of yourself that won't let go, as that's become an entity, right? Like there's all kinds of entities, a blanket term. It's scary, but the reason I wanted to bring that up is because it does happen.
Oh yeah.
Usually when it happens, though, the people that are experiencing the entity, they're just like, oh yeah, that's what happened. They're not like, oh my God. It's not like the movies where they're like, I'm being attacked by a demon and stuff. Like I've had some pretty dark energies with these people, and they were just like, oh yeah, it's just this a-hole guy that was with me in my past life, and he just won't let go. So right, it's just kind of weird, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, is because that's very interesting. And that was your very first time, and I bet that was pretty intense, where they were like, yeah, someone was trying to take me over.
Yeah. Yeah. She took it very easily, and I think probably that's why I had her, because for me it was like, what can I deal with? And that's, I could deal with it because she knew what was going on. The director of training knew what was going on. And I was being opened up to the spiritual world that I had really ignored or cut out of my life since my teenage years, I think. And it was like, yeah, we've been trying to get through, and now we're going to kick you with it. That's how I see it. It was like, yeah, we've tried this a few times and you've not taken any notice, so now you're not going to be able to ignore it ever again.
And that was the
So
first time you saw energy too, right? Or
that
like
was the first time I saw
auras.
it. Oh, the auras, yes. I mean, from that day, the rest of the weekend of that course, that particular weekend, everybody's auras were like glowing really brightly. So for me, it was like suddenly I've got a realization that those auras are around everybody, and they are not just a little sort of egg around the body. They stretch out sort of 6 foot or more around the human being. And so it was quite confusing for me to live around these people who were suddenly glowing in different colors, and a realization that I could understand more about them because I could see these different colors. And people were saying, well, what color am I? It's like, I don't know what these mean, but I get a sense of what they mean.
So is it an actual visual experience, or is it more like a perceptive experience?
For me at that point, it was absolutely visual. I could not see it. I learned to, over the next sort of 6 months, I suppose, I learned to remove it for normal world, and then just be able to focus on it when I want to see it. Because as I was explaining to you before we got on, if you've got somebody who with an aura and there's sort of 6 foot around them or more, when you're driving along the street and somebody's crossing, you can't figure out where they are, because they're suddenly this huge great ball of light, six or seven times the size that they would normally be. And it wasn't practical to live in this world like that. So I had to learn to remove it
Like
most of the time.
turn it off and turn it on.
Yeah.
So is
So
it
now,
like a switch now? Can you just like switch it on and off?
yeah.
Huh. Interesting. And I totally believe you, because I had the same kind of a thing with my channeling stuff, when I could channel guides. It used to be I had to sit down, kind of the opposite actually what you're talking about. I had to sit down and like focus really hard and do it. And nowadays I can basically do it at will, fully conscious. It's just a matter of learning the switch, I guess.
Yeah,
Right.
understanding your own switch. So
Yeah,
yeah, I get
that's
that.
very
It's like,
interesting. How often do you just go like, okay, I'm just gonna check out this person's aura a little bit, just like take a little quick little peek.
um, I guess I do it quite a lot. Um, yeah, I do it. If I can't understand somebody, I'll do it then. If I can't kind of make sense of somebody, or somebody makes a comment about somebody, and I'm going, okay, that's interesting. Why do you think that? And if I switch on the auras, I get more sense out of what's going on. Um,
So do you have to be in like the person's presence, or can you like tune into it? So if you were, let's just say like some celebrity somewhere, could you just like tune into that aura, or do you have to physically be in their presence, or can you see them, for example, like over a Zoom meeting like we're doing now? Like what? I'm just kind of curious how that works.
um, I can do it over a Zoom meeting. Yes, I can, and I can
Huh.
focus into you and see yours, and it's yeah, it's a nice sort of turquoise energy mostly, which is good because it's quite a learning energy, turquoise, I think. But to get my finer detail, it's much better. I find it much easier if somebody's in front of me. Um, for instance, if there's like damage to the aura or something, it's much clearer if somebody's there in front of me. So I'll get an impression over a Zoom thing, but I can get detail when I look at somebody there in front of me. And that's probably because I haven't spent an awful lot of time refining that, because to me it's just an extra in my world. It's not what I do. Some people
Right.
is what they do, whereas for
So
me
sorry to go down that rabbit hole. It's just I'm very
it's
very curious about it because you mentioned damaged, like a damaged aura.
mm,
Um, and correct me if I'm wrong. And I know that we're gonna move into speaking about something we were talking about before. I just want to touch on this a little bit. When I hear damaged aura, the impression to me is like your aura is kind of like generated from, we'll just call it the chakras, right? Your energy system. So when you say damaged aura, that indicates to me internal energetic trauma or damage or blockage. Would you say that that's correct? Or am I off base?
yeah, I'd say pretty much, yeah. And it could be illness or it could be attitude. um, I find people uh, when they get quite self-conscious or self-important, they suddenly have it has effects on their aura. So yeah, mentally, emotionally, and physical, internal things do affect people's aura. Yeah. So you can see illness sometimes, and you can see mental attitudes that aren't
Huh.
good.
That's so fascinating. That's so cool. It makes me wish that I had it, but I bet you, I can hear it now. It's just like, it's one man's blessing is another man's curse, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I think also um, you have kind of discovered the spiritual journey that is yours and not somebody else's. And for me, okay, I'm quite a visual person. I did arts and things at college, so um, it made sense to me that the colours and things were what came out of that. Um, my mother used to read palms, and she forever trying to teach me to read palms, and I just couldn't get it. It didn't make sense. Didn't I couldn't connect with it at all. Whereas I think we all have our way of getting into the spiritual world. Um, and that for me is one of the things that I can do. That, and when I work with past life regression, I can quite often see the person as they were in the previous life. So being an artist, I quite often will draw a picture of them in their previous life, which is quite nice for people when they come out and they say, yeah, that was definitely me.
That's very interesting. Yeah, I've never even heard of anybody doing that. That's really, really unique and very cool. Anybody out there who's interested in working with Barbara, links are going to be in the description, just so everybody knows. And one thing you said is everybody has and we're going to kind of circle back to what we were talking about before we started talking.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own, we'll just call it like an entry point to their own spirituality, right? And what you were talking about is you were talking about basically like spiritual evolution or spiritual growth, and how there's a lot of people out there that kind of get stuck on one level of spiritual growth. We'll call it, some people will just stay doing psychic mediumship. Some people will just stay going to the same church for 60 years. And they won't do anything with that, right? There's lots and lots and lots of different levels to this, but it's really easy to get wrapped up in your own Kool-Aid, right? Like, I don't know if that's a common expression in the UK.
It isn't, but I know what it means.
You drink your own Kool-Aid for too long, you get used to it. You don't want to try other Kool-Aids, and let's just jump back into that. What are your thoughts on that? I know that you like to talk about that. I'd love to hear and start a dialogue on.
Yeah, and it comes back to this loving to know the whys of everything. And because doing the past life regressions, I get invited by clients to spiritual mediumship or the spiritual church or things, because they think I'm going to be interested in that as well. So I've been along to a few of those, and you go along and there's some medium there sort of calling people out and saying, grandma likes your new curtains, and I get that there's an understanding. What you're learning there is that there is another side, and that we do carry on, and that the people that we care about are still there, and they're still reasonably aware of what's going on with us. But then they seem to go on and on and on with that. And I get the same with the regression therapy, people that want to do regressions over and over again, and to go into every minutiae of a previous life, or they want to do another one and another one. They want to know all their past lives, and if you think about the amount of past lives they've probably had, you could do that for more than one lifetime. And for me, it's like, well, so once you know that there is another side, and you know that we do go on, so your spiritual church, okay, you've learned that, and you've come into reincarnation, and you've understood that we come back and we learn. For me, it's like, okay, but so you have to move on from that. It's like, okay, why are we doing that? And that's the question nobody seems to ask anymore. It's like, why are we here? We're here to learn. We're here to move through our world and learn from our previous lives and move on and become more spiritual, etc. But then you kind of, my next question is, well, yeah, but why are we doing that? If we get into the life between lives, and you've got this higher spiritual being who's experiencing lots of lives, what's the point of that? And for me, it's like, well, nobody's asking this question. So I did some work with some of the people I trained with, and I've continued that on since, into what's that all about? What are we actually achieving by experiencing lots of lives and becoming more conscious and more aware? And I've begun to realize that as a sort of, we have this source consciousness. We might call it God, we might call it something else, and I would call it source consciousness because it seems to be the most And the one thing that is not going to upset people who don't believe in God, but source consciousness to me is like everything is conscious. The rock that you pick up on your walk, every atom in that and every electron in that has to be conscious of what it's being. Otherwise, that rock wouldn't be a rock, it would be something else. It has to know, has to have a sense of the way it has to be to become that piece of rock. And so everything that we have is conscious, and the whole of our universe is conscious, and we are part of that source consciousness. But to be conscious, it has to have created something to be conscious of. You can't be conscious without nothing to be conscious of. And that comes back to when you read the Vedas and things, I think it's Brahma that wakes up and yawns. I might be wrong about the actual character of Vishnu that wakes up and yawns. It suddenly becomes conscious and starts to create the universe. So that consciousness is creating the universe, and by living our lives, we're taking that knowledge, and that becomes part of the source consciousness that is expanding and expanding and expanding, because of every experience we have expands that consciousness. So we are actually source consciousness expanding the universe in every experience we have. We have to realize that we take all these experiences, and they become part of that consciousness, like just being. And that starts to make sense as to why everything exists. Why are we doing any of it? Because source consciousness needs to be conscious.
You see, I try to take a very practical approach in my show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think my audience can agree with that. And what you just said rang very, very true to me, Barbara. Like I was trying to pull it apart in my head. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when you were talking about the atoms in a rock have to be aware of that rock, right? I really couldn't even find a flaw with anything. I was trying to pull it apart to see if I could play devil's advocate, but that was just like a very, very rock solid, excuse the pun, very rock solid thing to say. For my audience, I've experienced in a lot of energy work and energy spiritual hypnosis that I do. We'll talk to the cells in the body, and they're conscious. Like the cells in your body are aware of you as a whole. They're aware that they're working on a bigger organism. So you're
Yeah.
made up of cells that know that you exist. They're not just like these little autonomous things. They're conscious on a very basic level, and they're aware that they're in a
Yeah.
body.
I think somebody once said, and I can't remember who it was, we are not a being, we are a community. So each and every one of us are a community of viruses and bacteria and cells, and they they are conscious in their own experience and what they are having to be to make this body work, which is how we can heal ourselves, is because it's only like something's gone wrong somewhere, and you just got to get the message to the right thing to put it right. So yes, it's like each part of us has to be conscious. Each level, each atom, each photon has to be conscious to build it.
Yeah, and I've worked with people where we will, let's just say, for example, smoking cessation, where people will want to stop smoking.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask the cells in their body to make the physical changes that are necessary to make it so that they no longer have a physical craving to smoke, or even be like disgusted by the thought of smoking, right?
Yeah.
So that you can talk to these to the cells in your body. You just have to know how to do it. And so when you were talking about, you know, the rock being conscious, that extends to everything, even like my microphone, right? And we're not talking for anybody who's listening. Barbara and I aren't talking about, I could have a conversation with my microphone and my microphone's going to start having this philosophical discussion about the meaning of life. No, we're talking about like inanimate objects being aware, like being aware that they're an inanimate object, because otherwise it would fall apart. And there's a ton of different actual research out there that really shows that molecules and things behave differently depending on whether or not they're being observed.
Yeah.
Matter itself is not necessarily a stable, I don't even know the word I'm looking for, a stable element of reality, right? It changes, it morphs depending on whether or not you're looking at it, which brings into question, like, is anything even there if you're not looking at it, right? And if for anybody that doesn't believe me, look up the double slit experiment. You'll know they've proven this in quantum physics,
Absolutely.
that matter does not stay in the same state unless you're looking at it, or unless you're aware of it, which is crazy. And it kind of goes along exactly like what you're saying, Barbara, that everything has to be aware of its own state. And that even extends to humans too, right? If you become aware of your little toe, your little pinky toe, right? You could take your whole consciousness and stick it right in your pinky toe, and then all of a sudden you are your pinky toe. And then you can take your consciousness and pull it out of your body, and you can be in the entire room. You can actually do these exercises in meditation, so you can move your consciousness around a lot. And it's just, we're getting into kind of heavy metaphysics here, and I love it.
Yeah, again, that's when I say I did some work with some of the people I studied with, but also on my own. A lot of that was about taking myself out. You go, okay, as a higher consciousness, my soul has had lots of lives, so there's a little line of lives there. Whether it's straight or not, we just don't know. It's probably more like a DNA spiral, so that we can cross over past and future. But if you go back a step further, that there's another level where that higher consciousness is one of many higher consciousness, which is a line on its own, and they're all having different lives. So you become that as well, and you can start to step back. So you can actually start to sense what it would feel like to become part of that source consciousness, when you realize that everything, it's fractal. It's a fractal image. It just keeps on repeating itself over and over again. One life, and then a higher consciousness with a lot of lives, and then up above that, something else that's got lots of higher consciousness with lots of lives. And that's how you kind of start to realize that we are all one, because my higher consciousness might be experiencing this little life over there, but it's also experiencing that little line of lives over there.
It's like a baklava. It's like there's a lot of layers. There's some people out there that are like, there's 9 layers to our reality, and I'm like, well, how the hell do you know that?
No, there's got to be infinite, hasn't it? It's got to be infinite. It can't be 9.
It just keeps going and going and going. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure somewhere out there's a source. Like, there's an actual, like, okay, we've reached the pool of energy where everything comes from. But even then, who's to say that, like, that pool of energy isn't like being fed by an even bigger pool of energy somewhere that's feeding 600,000 other energies or whatever.
When I was a child, and I quite distinctly remember it, I used to think that the universe was like a little anthill inside of child's jar, and the child's looking at the jar with all the ant world in it, and how that's happening. But then the child was also in another jar of a bigger child, and that's how I saw it as a toddler. I remember quite distinctly about when I was about 5 or 6. That's how I saw the world.
That's
It's like,
that's very interesting for a 5 or 6 year old to think like
yeah,
that. And what I when I am think about the universe, have you ever seen the movies like the Men in Black movies? Have you ever seen those?
yeah,
There's this one scene at the very end of one of them. I'm not sure, but it's like shows um they're in there doing whatever they're doing at the end, and they say their final cheesy line or whatever, and then it starts to zoom out. It zooms out of the Earth, it zooms out of the solar system, it zooms out of the galaxy and out of the entire universe until it becomes a little marble, and the little marble is being like a big huge alien is playing marbles with our whole entire universe and like shooting marbles with our entire universe. And that's kind of how I see it. Not the alien thing, but like our universe is
it's the
actually
same.
super super tiny, I think,
Yeah, I think, yeah,
compared to the grand scale of
we have no idea.
everything.
We have no idea. We might be sitting on the back of an ant somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, we just don't know, and we can't see. It's like trying to see what like for a cell, like trying to see what the human body you're living in looks like from the inside. It's like trying to guess, because we're like way down low, and we're not even. It just keeps going. If you even think about like how small, how big we feel, there's even smaller and smaller creatures like ants, and then mites, and then bacteria and cells and all this. It just keeps going down and down and down.
Yeah,
If it keeps going down and down and down, then logic tells you that it has to keep going up and up and up too.
yeah, yeah. And that's how I see what we're doing. When we start to realize that we become part of this experience of just experiencing, just being conscious, being just just being. It it changes the way you look at things. It changes the way you look at other people. Um, one thing to say is, yes, we're all one. We're all being. We're all connected in some way. But actually, you start to realize, we're not just connected to each other. We are each other. If I go back far enough, it's a bit like a family tree. If we say, you might be a third cousin or a fourth cousin or a fifth cousin. I don't know about you, but if I work on LinkedIn these days, nobody is further than a third connection from me. I've not come across anybody in the last 3 or 4 years who's further than third connection from me on that. And that's the same as the world as it is. We're all connected at that same level. That way, it takes away judgment on people when you start to realize that they're just you experiencing a different world.
Yeah, it makes it hard. It makes it hard to hate people too.
Yeah,
Except for in very rare circumstances for me. I was doing this channeling session a while back, and this was I was at the time I was very frustrated. I was very kind of upset with the state of the world, and the person I was doing the channeling session was asking questions about like, oh, why is the world in so much chaos right now, and what I ended up saying, and at the time I didn't even agree with this. I just thought that people were being a-holes and power hungry and all that stuff. What ended up coming across was that these people, like these evil people, they are like evil people, and they are doing these evil things, right? Like we can't deny that they are doing that, and that there are people out there that are power hungry, but the people, what ended up coming across is that they volunteered to come here to do those evil things, and that it's like damaging their soul on a greater level, and they're gonna need time to like recuperate, I guess. But apparently they're doing it to help humanity grow, because like there's duality in all things, and there's like the healers, like Barbara, and then there's like the herders
Yeah, no,
out
this is,
there.
I totally agree with that. And that's something that people find, that's probably the toughest thing that people learn with past life regression is um, you can't hate if you hate somebody who's done something awful to you, and you get into the life between lives, 9 times out of 10 you'll find that they are a part of your soul group, and they said they
Yeah.
would do this because you wanted to experience that side of it. So somebody had to be the bad guy. And I always find it quite, because when I do a past life regression, I take people into the spirit world afterwards. I don't just finish when they die. I take people into the spirit world and then talk to the characters in that past life and at the soul level. And quite often they're just like the really, really bad guy, and you're just hugging and saying, well, we did a really good job there. And because love is on a different level. We tend to, we're playing in a TV series.
Yeah, or like a video game. It's a
Yeah,
game, like,
yeah,
or a play. We're all in a play, and the
yeah.
script is being made up as we go. Maybe.
No. I think most of it has actually been pretty well planned. It's quite hard going to make it up as you go along, because you've got to get certain things in the right places. Certain things have to happen to you for you to experience what you need to experience. So although there's leeway and you can go off piste and go do something slightly different, it can mess up everybody else's plans as well if you do that. So that's kind of frowned
I'm
upon a
talking
little bit.
about like day-to-day conversation
Yeah,
and things like that. That's the kind of script, like
yeah,
you have free will, and you can go and make your own choices, but odds are, if you had already come here and planned something, if you go off and you go off script too much, something traumatic is going to happen to bring you back on to where you're supposed to go.
yeah,
I've seen that happened to me, where I was just kind of stagnant. I was making a lot of money in this job. I had like a really great job, but I was just like stagnant. And then all of a sudden I lost that job, and it kind of spiraled into me doing my podcast and doing my spiritual growth, and being motivated to create a lot of different things. And I'm sure a lot of people can attest to that. If you go off script too far, you're going to get slapped back.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's probably the same as I was saying. I got made redundant, which is why I actually got to do this and start to train in that. Like, yeah, now I've got 2 years of pay. I can go off and train, which I hadn't been able to do before. But yeah, you do get knocked off, and you'll get knocked back again, um, until you kind of find the right way. But the whole idea of judging people or thinking that people are bad, um, because of the bad things they may have done on this earth when they're in an earthly level, yes, it can cause problems for them, and they may have to come back and do something different because they messed up a bit and enjoyed the bad stuff too much. That's one that I've got. It's like somebody's enjoyed it too much, and they've got slightly damaged by it, rather than somebody who did it because that was their part to play. So it does make it very much more difficult to dislike people for any length of time. Although, to be fair, I think we have to remember that being in the moment, we have to experience. So when something awful happens to us, we have to feel those feelings of disgust or hate or anger or sadness. But then we've got to let them go again. Because the whole point of being here is to experience. So it's like the Buddhist theory of non-attachment. You've got to be non-attached, but first you've got to experience. You have to be in the now and experience the feeling, all the emotions, and then you let go of it afterwards, because
like
you've learned.
experience everything though,
Oh yeah.
right? Like everything, like love, hate, joy, sadness, pain, pleasure, everything, right? That you're talking about experiencing reality. There's some people out there that think that the only reason we come here is to experience pain.
Oh no,
What do
no,
you think of that?
no. That's no. Although I guess that's sort of along the lines of the Gnostics. The Gnostics believe that like there's heaven and hell. This is hell. It doesn't get any worse than this. But no, I don't think. Certainly, when you go into the life between lives, you feel this oneness and love like no other experience in the world feels that sort of connectedness and oneness and love that you feel in the life between life. But to try and find those experiences in this life and just the beauty of this world. We just have a beautiful world.
And there's things that suck about it, you know.
But they're all part of what it's supposed to be. It's like, yes, it's hard work. It's hard. It's like university. It's not going to be easy. But it is wondrous. And again, it's like the whole all the things that are bad about this world are also part of the plan. It's like everything is going to end up how it's meant to end up anyway, because that's how it's been planned. It's like that is what's going to happen.
So is free will an illusion then?
I don't think it's an illusion. We've also already had our free will, a lot of our free will in just planning our life. This is what I want to learn when I get down there. That's what I want to get a bit more information about. This is the plan of how I'm going to do it. I need certain types of parentage, family, so that I can learn that knowledge or the best way to be that way. So you've already had a fair amount of free will before you've even landed here, as it were. And then, yes, you can go off piste. You've got free will. There's nothing to stop you doing something. That people are going to be a bit upset if you've decided you're going to ignore everything and go off. As we say, you will keep getting knocked back. But that doesn't mean to say you can't. It does mean to say that some soul might be a little bit upset that you messed up their plan. But they've got another chance to do something.
I guess if you keep getting knocked back, like these reminders to get back on track, then people could just keep ignoring it and just do whatever. I guess they could do that. So yeah, I get
again, like university. If you go to university, you've already chosen your course. You've chosen which university you're going to. You've chosen which modules you're going to study, and it's up to you then whether you follow along or you're going to just not do the work and drop out and go off and do something else. So it's very similar in that sense. Yes, there's free will, but free will doesn't necessarily get you to where you want to go.
Yeah, and when I meant free will, I was talking specifically about our lifetime, because if everything is kind of predestined, that kind of takes away from, the thought that you are making every choice in this meat suit that you're in.
No, probably not. But then you are making every choice at that level of source consciousness as well.
Yeah, and if you keep going up and up and up, the free will.
And if you start to see yourself as more about the source consciousness driving this experience of being, then the free will of it just becomes less important. I mean, the importance of free will, we kind of see it as a major importance in our life, but actually in the greater scheme of things, how important is that? At what level is that important? I've already decided what my life is going to be, what I'm trying to learn in this lifetime. And now I'm trying to get the most out of those decisions. So how much free will I've got? I can not learn it. And then I'm going to get back to the other side and think, oh dear, I've got to do that again because I didn't get that right. Now I've wasted all that time. Went to university, dropped out, didn't learn that, and now I'm going, oh, now I'm going to have to try again, perhaps do it a little bit differently to get to where I was trying to get to.
A caveat that I would like to add to this discussion, Barbara, I'm sure that you'll agree with this too, is that even though we've been talking about this massive scale of things and like the nature of the universe and this big picture stuff that makes my brain hurt, right? It's okay, I think, if people don't want to pay attention to any of this big picture stuff, if they don't want to look at the grand scale of the universe and they just want to sit there and zoom in and focus on just living life as a human and just get into the nitty gritty of being a human every day and not even pay attention to any of that spirituality stuff, not pay attention to any of that on a conscious level, that's okay too. Like just digging into being a human and just living your experience. Like you don't have to go through and be this spiritual guru. You don't have to be aware of like the levels, the baklava of the universe, right?
No, because
You can just get right into it.
Yeah, you're still getting your spiritual development out of it. You're still developing from where you were to where you're going to be at the end of your life, even if you're just living the life of a human.
Yeah, so like if you're just doing that, it's fine, right?
Yeah,
like it's
absolutely.
not, there's nothing to be ashamed of if you're like, oh, I feel like I'm not spiritual enough. You're already doing it. Like you're already doing what you came here to do anyway. It's fine, right? Like
you can't be not spiritual enough. You just are. You are spirit. It's like your spirit having a human experience. So you can't be not spiritual enough. We have this idea of what it means to be spiritual. We have to, what you've got to look like, what you've got to do in your life. You can't do this and you can do that. It's like, no, you're spiritual. You can't help but be spiritual. You're a spiritual being living a human experience. So whatever you do is spiritual.
Yeah, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because we spent a lot of time talking about this massive, big picture stuff.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to bring it back to the everyday individual experience. So how can, in your opinion, everything that we've talked about, how can people take that and apply it to their day-to-day life? What's the takeaway?
The takeaway is that we are all not just connected, we are all one. You can't judge someone else because you don't know what their plan is, for a start. I mean, you have no idea when you meet someone what they have planned for their life, what they're trying to learn in their life. So unless you know that, how can you judge whether they're doing all right or not? You can't judge who they are or what they do or what they're like. You don't know their story. And when you start to realize that they are just another aspect of that, we're both aspects of this consciousness experiencing being human, it's very much more difficult to prejudge any other person. And as we were saying earlier, it becomes almost impossible. You can't hate anyone. You can hate them in the moment, but as a sort of long-term thing, you just like, okay, yeah, that's their journey, whatever it is that they're learning, or whatever it is we are learning.
So
And that for me,
basically, oh, go ahead.
yeah, for me, it's the main takeaway. We're all one. We're not just connected. We're all aspects of the same thing.
So basically, mind your own business.
So much mind your own business.
I know that's a harsh way. It's a little harsh.
If you start to get into the life between lives and that wonderful feeling of oneness and love that you get there, if you can just feel that here and just say, well, yeah, we're all one. We have this love of each other because we are pure, perfect source consciousness experiencing being. Therefore, we start to treat each other in different ways.
Well, that's a good takeaway, and it's hard to find like a takeaway when you get such big picture. Our human minds aren't really designed to absorb the big picture like that. Like our human minds are kind of designed to be stuck in the human experience anyway. Like pushing yourself outside of that is kind of difficult, and that's why people look for people like you and like me to help them along the way. Even though I think you and I would both consider ourselves lifelong students, people come looking for someone to help them. And speaking of looking for someone to help, anyone who wants to reach out to Barbara, please do. And speaking of that, where can people reach out to you? What does your social media look like? What does your website look like? What does your email contact? Whatever you want to plug, go ahead and plug it. And I would love to include that in my show.
Okay, I've got two websites. One is barbaraburgess.com. The other one is deja-view, that's VIEW.org.uk. My Facebook is Barbara Burgess Deja View. Again, they're the main places. Not a great lover of Twitter, so don't do that. And I also can be found on Reddit as Barbara Burgess.
Perfect. Well, links to all those are going to be found in the description. If you feel drawn to working with Barbara, please reach out to her. She's a fabulous, fabulous human being. Such great. I haven't had such an interesting conversation in a long time, to be honest with you. It's kind of blown my mind, and that's kind of rare for me nowadays. I feel like I've been kind of like rehashing the same types of things, and it's been very refreshing to feel like my mind has been blown. I'm going to put you on the spot, Barbara, and ask you, do you have a message you'd like to leave from my audience before we kind of wrap up?
My message is always, as goes back to that, we are all one. We're all spirit experiencing being human.
Well, thank you so much for coming on my show. I can't thank you enough. It was so interesting, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on my show.
I thoroughly enjoyed it, Ian. It's been great talking to you.
That's it for today's episode. I would like to thank Barbara for coming on to the show, and I would also like to thank you for tuning in. Definitely reach out to me if you want to come onto the podcast and talk to me. I don't care if you're a practitioner and you do Reiki or past life regression or whatever, or if you're just a normal person who's going through a spiritual awakening and want to talk it out with me. If you want to bounce ideas off me, I think that would be very helpful for people to hear other people's experiences and bounce off ideas. If you want to do a session with me and put it up for the podcast, I'm okay with doing that as well. I'm pretty much open for any ideas if you want to come on the show. Don't forget to share the podcast around with everybody in the whole world, and don't forget to subscribe in your podcast player. My email is theregressionsession@gmail.com. Reach out to me.
points are closing in, and the sea is bringing us by another place we live within. With courage in our minds and our hearts filled up with love, by the quest that we're defined, we can only hope we'll find what we came for.